They connect, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it says live. We'll see.
Okay, round 3. This is like a boxing match. Okay, round 3. So I believe the other 2 rounds got deleted. So if you guys are watching live, you know, I didn't upload that stuff. So we're going to start over again. So we're going to talk today about right rear spring loads. Okay, basically on a modified street stock, maybe a little bit of late model. Okay, a lot of the conversation was based off of a video that's on Race Know-How. Maybe some of our internet connection problem is what's going on with that computer over there.
Mm-hmm.
But, so on Race Know-How, there's a video from a guy from Warrior Race Cars that talks about right rear load. Everything he says on the video, I believe, is 100% correct. Okay, so Race Know-How it's a website Jonathan Master has. You would pay to get on, you know, pay the prescription, get on, watch the videos. Tons of great information. I think there's even a couple on there that he's got me on, but tons of great information on there. So, like, get on, log on, but listen to what they say, okay? Smart guys telling us smart things, but listen to what they say, and then really define what will apply to your car and what won't. Because in this particular video, he's talking about an open late model, okay, with tendencies to a crate. So, and now we're having conversations about street stocks, modified, sport mods. Okay, so things change. One of the things that he said in the video, and I should have watched it again today, I just run short of time, but is, you know, what they were doing between slick and tacky to get to the right rear. And they were changing spring rubbers, okay, which creates a dramatic problem on a modified, especially an IMCA modified, you know. So now you're talking about a car that you can't run a spring rubber on, can't run a bump stop on. So all of a sudden, you know, we just want to forget about that part of it, but that's the big part of it, okay? So we'll go on. You know, like I said, the things he said, he was talking about his 2-inch number being at 900 pounds, okay, with his basic load of 375. So on a modified, you know, street stock car modified, basically what our practice is roughly somewhere around 2/3 the weight is on the spring, okay? So on a modified IMCA car, we're talking about 630 pounds. 2/3 of that's going to be 400 pounds, okay? We like the 375 number better, okay? And that's kind of the industrial standard that everybody's been using for a while, is 375. And if you're on that 200-pound spring and you get 2 more inches travel, then you're ending up around that 800 pounds load number deal, okay? And on that video, the 800, 900 pounds he's talking about is what it takes to stop the car's travel, okay?
I think they're having trouble again. Some people said they're having trouble, and then I think it's going in and out. So I don't know.
Modern world of technology, and it sucks when it don't work, and it's marvelous. I mean, who would have ever thought that we could stand here in 2020 and broadcast live from our front office? You know, broadcast live. This is like Howard Cosell, which most of you probably don't even know who that is, but Howard Cosell and CBS Wide World of Sports, you know.
They're saying it's good now.
Okay.
So
Well, we're going to go on. We're going to give it a try. We've been posting these to our YouTube video. Okay, there's a link on our website. If you go to FGTV and click on the link, you know, it says FGTV, and I put a big click, you know, click here, you know, it'll go to our YouTube site. You can watch these videos, okay? So we'll play around with the YouTube site a little bit. So hopefully the video on the YouTube site won't have the hesitations in it, but so we're back to the right rear spring. We want to carry 2/3 of the weight's car on the right rear spring, okay? Which is about 400 pounds. So like I said, we like that 375 number, which is also kind of the industrial standard. Okay, so 375 works pretty well. So, guys without a spring smasher, this is how you figure it. And I was going to bring a 12-inch scale over and I forgot. So, a new part number for us this year is a 12-inch Machinist scale. It reads in tenths with 20,000 increments, okay? We'll do a short little video on how to read that thing because you guys need to get one. You need to check these measurements with that type of scale, okay? Tape measure, we're out of that deal, okay? When you got a spring smasher, you're out of the tape measure, okay? So we need to get a more accurate number, okay? But here's how we're going to do it, you know. You scale your car, 630 pounds, you know, basically you already know we want to be at 375. So you go over to the right rear, car sitting on the ground, and you measure the right rear spring. And what we're looking for is our 375 number divided by our spring rate. Okay, so in this case, we're going to be on a 225 right rear. Okay, and our target load number is 375. And we're going to divide that by 225, which is 1.66. Okay, which is a little greater than 1 5/8 inches. Okay, so the 13-inch spring minus the 166 is 11 3/4, which is a little less than 11 3/8. Okay, so we need to be sitting there, cup to cup, no driver in the car, cup to cup at 11 3/4 inch. Okay, if you have a spring smasher, go back to the car, measure your center to center on your coilover eliminator or your shock. Measure center to center, and we'll just say it's 18 inches. Take it in, put it in your spring smasher, 18 inches, run it down to the 375. Okay, here's where the problem starts. So some guys are recommending, okay, so let's say you do this. You put it on the spring smasher, you set your 18-inch center to center, you set your 375, you go back out and you put it on the car. Everybody I ask, nobody checks that measurement. So now all of a sudden your center to center is no longer 18 inches, okay? Which kind of defeats the purpose of having a center to center measurement or a right height measurement. So I'm going to use, only because it was the last example we had, I'm going to use Shawcar, and I do believe this is correct. And Wilkie can give you the information for it. But right rear right height, 12, oh my, 12 and a half. 12 and a half. I think that's right. Double check with Wilkie. He knows. 12 and a half. Okay, so from the top of the axle to the bottom of the frame, 12 and a half inches. Well, they have a stick, you know, they recommend, like, you know, get a stick, push the car down, measure the spring. Okay, so that's fine and dandy, but that's one of the don'ts I think we should stop doing, because at that height the spring is at this load, but when we start putting turns in, the car is going to race. So when you go over there and you take and do the math and you put your load in at 375 at 18 inches and you put it on the car and it's no longer at 18 inches, 18 and a half, 19 inches, the load is incorrect. Okay, so you don't have 375 pounds of load sitting on that tire because it's not compressed the spring. It has to compress the spring at 11. It has to compress the spring with the 225 at 11 340 in order to have that load. Okay, if it's not at that height, then the load is not at 375. Okay, so you go out and race it and you go, well, my car it sucks, you know. Well, it sucks because it ain't got no side bite because it's not sitting at 375, it's sitting at 275, or, you know, it's probably sitting more like 300. Okay, so it's not right. Okay, so you've got to get it right. It goes back to an earlier video. In order to get it right, you've got to move weight around the car. Okay, or you got to physically put weight on the car. So what did we do for the last 25 years? Okay, the last 30 years of racing, when we needed more load on the right rear tire, what did we do? We put 50 pounds of lead over there. We increased the load, okay? Unlike putting 4 turns or 3 turns in the right rear. So like right now, if you go over and put 3 turns in the right rear and increase the so-called wheel load, all you did was raise the right rear ride height. which changed the right rear bar angles, which freed the car up a little, which isn't what you want. You want the tire to make more load in the slick, okay? So you want the tire to be hooked to the ground, okay? In order to hook the tire to the ground, our car's slowed down, our car's ability to get on the right rear slowed down, so we add weight to the car, it makes more grip on the right rear tire, okay? So just going in and putting turns in over there isn't getting it done. It's doing stuff, but it ain't doing what we are wanting it to do. It is the easiest route, because doing the 4 turns, you know, 2 in, 2 out, one in, 1 out, is a much more difficult way of doing it. I will post that on Facebook, how to put loads on the right rear, and how to put loads, how to add load to the right rear and take load away from the right rear. Okay, we'll either do a video. We've done it in some videos, but we'll do a specific video, upload it to YouTube. I'll upload it to Facebook. It'll be short, but it'll be just how to move loads away around the car. So for that example, let's say this is our car. Okay, right rear, right front, left front. Okay, we're not compressing this spring over here enough, because our weight, which is sitting right here, has been moved right here. Okay, our center of mass has moved in the cars. And if you notice, they're going towards the left front. Okay, in order to get the center of mass back to the right rear, you have to put turns in the car. If you put turns in all 4 corners, it moves the mass and leaves the ride heights the same. Okay, it's not, you know, the old timers all know how to do it, you know. Guys like Dave Murray and Tom Charles and them type of guys, Terry Sherpa, they all know how to do this, okay? But it's going to go away. That knowledge is going to go away pretty quick, because all we're going to do is a load number and a load number and a load number and a droop number, and we're going to call it done, okay? And we're really either going to be really good or we're going to suck, you know, one of the two, because we don't really know where our race car is, okay? So to kind of go back over it real quickly, 375 is the load number that we're basically going to start for, okay? That's a good starting point. I like a 225 on a crate car, so we're going to say IMCA car. I like a 225 spring. We have a 225 250 spring. I'll show that to you here in a minute. So 225. So you take 375, divide it by your spring rate, whatever it is, gets you the amount of compression you should have on the car to hold up 375 pounds. In this case, 1.66. Okay, minus your spring height, 13, 16, whatever it is, minus the height, gives you the compressed height. Go in there at that compressed height, measure between cup to cup. If you got a spring smasher, measure center to center, set it at 375. Make sure when you go back out to the car, it's set at center to center. Okay, or measure your center to center, take it into your spring smasher, put it on them numbers, and read what the compressed load is. If you need to get it up, you're going to have to add lead or make turns. Okay, so the jack bolts, and using the jack bolts is to set ride height. If you want to put load in the car, you have to add lead or turn all 4 corners. Okay, when a car weighs 2,470 pounds, race ready, you in the seat, you are not going to be able to turn bolts but once or maybe twice, because you're going to start robbing the other corners because the car's not heavy enough. So if you got a 200-pound driver, you're sitting there, you know, 220-pound driver, you're sitting there at 2250. Okay, that car is too light. Okay, that's a whole nother video, but that car is too light. And that car's not going to race well. This is another reason why we're doing all the junk we're doing. It's because we're trying to make the car think it's heavier than it is by preloading springs in the front and doing what we're doing. Okay, so that's the right rear. It can get a lot deeper. In the video, they talk about a 900 number. This is a point in which the car is going to stop traveling on the right rear. So they know this. They don't want the car to have, you know, to get on the right rear or be right rear dependent anymore. They don't want it to be laying on the right rear. So they know at 900 pounds, this is about where it's going to stop. And in the video, he says, you know, we got data to back this up. So this is the number that we're shooting for. You know, when it slicks off, they make the spring rate softer in the top part, but it gets to a 900. So he takes turns out, adds rubbers, but he still gets to his basic 900 pound at that 2-inch compressed number. So, you know, it's just a quick overview on that deal. Like this is,
Paul Harper asked if, he said, could you put a softer right rear spring in to promote more roll? And would the added roll add wheel load?
No. Yes, you can put the softer spring in. So let's say 225, now you go to a 175. Okay? The car rolls its weight over the roll center in the back. Okay? And we're going to say on a 4-bar car in particular. The car, as soon as you pick up the gas, the car is going to accelerate. Okay? That's the whole point. And the right rear and the left rear are both going to climb from the position they're in. Okay? So even though the right rear is going up, the weight's going to roll over the roll center. Okay? So the car is going to roll over and go up. Okay? In pictures, it looks like we're just getting all this body roll, and body roll equates to compressed rate, and it does, but not at a fast enough rate. So, you know, like if you're on 175, you're going to get a lot of body roll, but you're not going to get a lot of tire load. Okay, so the racetrack better come through for you. It ain't going to happen. So the grip level's not going to be there. Okay, the excessive body roll you may gives you rear steer. Okay, and that rear steer puts the car in a position that does allow sometimes for the car to go forward very well. Okay, and that sometimes it requires the correct amount of moisture. Okay, so there's a soft spring right rear scenario that works very well. Okay, my opinion is the problem with that setup is it's hard to hit, and you go out 20 nights and you hit it 3 nights out of 20. Okay, which the car's really good, you may win, you may run up front, but the other 17 nights you struggle. So to me, this is a poor average to race on. Done it for years that way, chased that dream, and you know, at the end of the year, it really was, you know, we sucked more than we really thought we did. We just didn't admit it, you know. So I'm not a big fan. If you want load on that tire, okay, you know, like back in the day, we would load them right rears up. You know, Dave Murray, you know, he can tell you about this, where the right rear just chattered the whole car. It was stuck so hard. Okay, but we're not doing that. We don't have to do that nowadays because we're not racing. Most of us are not racing on that big a motor program. It's too hard to race on that big a motor program. It's too hard to hook up an 8-inch tire with that much wheel spin. So most guys have, and it costs too much money. So most guys have seen, whether they're on a crate or not on a crate, that they've reduced their horsepower, and it's made the cars easier to drive, which means we're going to drive the car in, we're going to turn the car left, weight transfer is going to go lateral force to the right rear, it's going to compress the spring. Okay, if the spring's too soft, it'll compress it too much, stopping the car's ability to turn, because it'll move weight from the left front to the right rear. It doesn't really load the right rear up enough. We don't really want to be turning the car on the rear tires, so our car's ability to turn, and it'll start up the racetrack. The car will get tight. Okay, we'll be off throttle for a while, rear will square up, we'll have the steering wheel turn, and the next time we touch throttles, the car will be tight in the front. So this is, and then we'll break it loose with the brakes or the gas to get the tail of the car around. So this is what we want to stop. We want to stop all that stuff. We want to make that motion more smooth, carry the car through the corner, you know. So a right rear spring, a soft right rear spring, it's doable. I just don't think that's the route a guy should be going. I think it's just too tough of a route to go. Was there any other questions?
Let me see. Trevor Baker said, does the softer spring on the right rear make the driver be in the throttle less?
Yeah, I don't know that it makes him be in the throttle less, you know. The softer spring may be easier to control, so you're given Rebound in that corner may control that spring and not allow the car to square up as quick. But I think the car is going to lack some side bite. It's going to lack tire load, so it's going to lack grip on that tire. So You know, there's some scenarios like the video where if we could activate a softer spring, okay, so I don't really see it on the right rear, okay, so I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. We had a discussion this morning with an individual on the right front to where we could put more activity in the right front and increase the grip, and based on weight and a softer spring. So in that case it would work very well. But on the right rear, you know, you can't preload the right rear against the chain and carry load. It's not going to work. Okay, so as you put turns in to preload it, all you're doing is raising the right rear of the car up. It's not really his question, but you know, I see it coming because the chain on the right rear has a purpose and it needs to be set and forgot. It's not a tuning tool, it's a setting. And there's a certain amount of chain that a guy should have. When you start getting less, yes, the car makes more grip. Yes, it's desirable on certain parts of the racetrack. It's horrible on other parts of the racetrack. It just happens to be the parts that it's horrible on is the most important part of the racetrack, which is the same part that no one gives, you know, no one cares about. So it screws up entry. And if you can't get into the corner, and I know everybody says this, you know, if you can't get in, you can't get off, but nobody takes it serious. Okay, entry is the most important part of the corner. Okay, so no matter what you're doing in the corner, entry comes first. It must be first, must be fixed, and it must be good, and it must be right. And this is where we're making most of our mistakes. So, any other questions?
Jimmy Hager says, does right rear spring height make a difference on load?
The right rear spring height makes a difference on how the car transfers weight to the right rear. Okay, so how the center of mass, the gravity, rolls over the roll center. So it's kind of like, yes, if I've got my 16-inch spring in, or if I got my coilover turned over, so I'm let me think here, shaft up on an eliminator, so I got my spring up high. So it kind of, when that weight transfers over, the theory is the weight goes through the mount and pushes the spring down, okay? But the car, if the spring's up here and the mount's right here, the car gets over on it much simpler when the spring's down here. So that old theory that the weight transfers through the shock eye and down through the spring, I'm not going to say it's wrong, but I guarantee you when the spring's up, the car gets on the right rear less. Okay, so if you're fighting issues with side bite or tire load, I hate side bite. You know, I hate it. So if you are fighting issues with tire load on the right rear, and you have your spring high in the car, or you have a 16-inch spring, you may want to change that. You know, you may want to flip it over. If you can't flip it over because clearance around the bird cage, which is generally the problem, try to shim it up. Because maybe if you're shimmed up an inch and a half on the bottom, you're still an inch and a half lower. Okay, if the car still doesn't respond to body roll, weight transfer, roll in the rear, then you need to move your weight up in the car, because you could have your weight really low in the car. And it's kind of like, I always use a fat guy trying to pole vault. You know, he comes up and he hits it. He can't push it down. He just kind of loads. The load runs into the side of the spring and it struggles to compress it. So spring height is critical. The spring table in a car is set from this point to this point on all four corners. You connect all the tops, connect all the bottoms. Okay, everything that falls in that box, that spring box, is being controlled by the springs. Everything that falls outside of that is leverage in the springs. Okay, so we got to be careful, because the leverage is what we're trying to control with Rebound. Okay, and our spring box has gotten much lighter, so our sprung weight has decreased and especially in the modifieds has decreased, and our unsprung weight, I don't know if I ever say it right, the spring box has decreased, the wheels, the tires, that weight out there. The unsprung weight hasn't. You know, a wheel has got a little lighter, tire probably not much, spindle, probably not much. Brake caliper, probably not much. Rotor, probably not much. So that weight out there hasn't changed, but our car overall has lost 200 or 300 pounds over the years. So our spring box has gotten lighter. And when our spring box gets lighter, our activity to our springs has decreased, okay? And when the activity decreases, our grip level goes down. So that's why we're all going to softer springs, because it makes our grip level go up because our activity's gone up, okay? So it's all histogram, you know, so like if you're looking at data, it's on the histogram side of the data. So I hope that's making sense to people, okay? You know, the other thing, guys go, oh, I put a soft spring in and it made my car turn better. Yeah, exactly. That's the simple part of it. That's what it'll do, because now your spring rate matches your rebound better, okay? But there's only so much speed in that car before it, we're going to have some company. It's only so much spring in that car before the car hits the ground.
Okay.
So you can't just fix it with soft springs. That's why we're down to a 350, and we're preloading the heck out of it, you know. So there's my phone ringing. So we're fortunate enough to be in one of them areas where you get telemarketers calling your cell phone during the day. So any other questions?
Yeah, Jacob Pohl said, do you feel a chassis can be too rigid and make the setup window too small?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This is why I don't like, I've never been a big fan of 4130 cars or 4140 cars, and I'm not a big fan of Docal. And it's not fair to the Docal cars. I think Jimmy Haggard asked a question earlier. He had a car, he had to run it about 2 or 3 years before it got good. So I think there's life in them cars later on. But I think that the cars are so stiff, the window, your setup window is so small that for your average Saturday night racer that races on Saturday night, that works a full-time job, that doesn't spend as much time in the shop as he needs to, I think they struggle on a stiff car. So how some of these guys are getting, you know, square tube cars were stiffer. The Docal thing, I don't think, and I know I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but I don't think it really panned out. I think it was a typical thing that we do in racing. You know, it was voodoo, and it was voodoo before its time. It wasn't proven out. Everybody bought the story. They all jumped on ship because it was supposed to be the next best thing, and most of it was done in making the cars lighter. Okay, well, it didn't work. Too stiff.
Oh, Mom.
Too stiff. So.
Okay, then we have, so Ryan asked what spring that is that you have right there. Okay. What spring?
This is a 230 250, okay? And as you can see, this is a standard, what looks like a standard right rear spring, okay? It's part of our Vari-Rate spring, okay? This is a complicated little piece, you know. If we were all spring engineers, I suppose it'd make it really simple to explain, but what this spring will do is kind of creating two rates, you know, and I'm trying to get the split on it a little greater. So I want to be 225, 250, which means at ride height, I want the car to be 200, you know, be on a 225, okay? But when we at our 2-inch number, I want to be on a 250, okay? And it seems to work very well for a modified. It seems to work very well for street stocks. It seems to work very well for stock cars, okay? So we can get in on a 250. So we're not dragging the right rear so hard because we've transferred so much weight, okay? So it's easier to go out there and be probably a little overdone, a little too much weight. We got too much hanging here or whatever. So instead of just compressing, you know, in the heat race and just smoking the right rear, the spring's stiffer. It creates a tire load, okay? So it creates that 900-pound number they talk about in the video. It stops the travel in the car, so we have a good roll steer amount every lap. So our roll steer amount is not changing every lap. It you know, it equalizes that out. It equalized out the wheel load. You know, it has good wheel load numbers. And like I said, I mean, it puts grip in the right rear, and it does very well. okay? And it does it because of the way it's built. And like I said, here again, it's kind of complicated, and I can't give you all the woohoo, the voodoo on it, you know, but it does work. It does work, and it does work very well. And it is, in my opinion, not a progressive spring because it's pretty equally coiled out, but it has a little bit of you know, work done to it. If we can, here's my problem, guys. I can't sell enough springs, okay? I'm a small guy trying to compete in this market. Okay, this is a very good spring. This is something we need to be doing, okay? In order to make this spring better, I gotta get the volume up. So we have to start ordering these in much higher quantities to take better control of our quality control on it, okay? So to get a very good 225, 250 split, I have to have my volume up, and I can't have my volume up without you guys' help. So if somebody wants to step in and help us do that, we can do it. If you guys want to buy this spring, because this is a good spring. Okay, it's a really good right rear spring. It solves, but we want to take some of this technology, and I know by talking about it, it's going to probably hurt us because we can't move fast enough. So we want to take this technology and do it. And this ain't hype. I'm not selling you hype. I don't sell hype. If you know me, if you know us, and you know what we do, if it don't work, it don't sell. Okay, that's why we don't have every gizmo in the catalog, in the book. You know, I don't make silly stuff. I make stuff that makes speed. Okay, that's what we do. We've always tried to fix the problem. Find the problem, fix the problem. Okay, this kind of come to us by a gift. You know, this technology is really good. It's not hype. It works. Okay, and it needs to be transferred to the right front. Okay, and eventually probably the left front. This type of technology we need to perfect on the right rear. For a modified street stock car style guy, we need to perfect this. Then we need to move to the right front and work on that. It's equally the same.
Philip Warwick asked, he said, so let me get this straight. Using this example, I should set my eye to eye at 11.37 and get 350 pounds of load at ride height.
Wrong. Not your eye to eye. It's not your eye to eye. It's your spring cup. Okay, this is going to be really rough. It's your spring cup. So like, here's your cup. Here's your top cup, you know. And here's your bottom cup. Okay, and your spring is sitting right in here. Right here, from here to here, on a 13-inch 225 with 375 pounds of load. This dimension, dimension A, will be 11, call it 350. Okay, that's 25,000 short of 11 3/8. Hey, Arlene, if you'd bring me back a 12-inch scale. They're sitting over there right in front of the printer, right in front of the height gauge that measures springs. They're in little red sleeves.
What's it called?
12-inch scale. If you can't find it, that's fine. But this is the dimension, okay? So your slider comes on up here, and that's an eye. The body comes on down here, and that's an eye. Okay, so we're talking cup to cup, 11 inches, 340 thousandths. Okay, this dimension might be closer to 18 inches on a modified. So it is cup to cup. We may do something on the cups to make them a little more easy to get in there, you know, the cup, because our cup kind of almost sets inboard a little. So we're doing OD cups for the fronts. We're doing OD cups. We already do OD cups for the rears. We got OD inserts, thrust bearings. We're gonna do. We're gonna offer the thrust bearings for the fronts and offer the thrust bearings for the rears. But that cup would be from here to here. So my assistant left me high and dry. So I know there's probably more questions.
And then here's a smaller one.
Yeah, this will be fine. While you're looking for some other questions, I'll kind of. No, that's tight. Okay, that's a 12-inch scale. Okay, I don't really care about this side. This side's in hundreds. Okay, so 11 340. So we'll do 3 inches 340. So it'd be 100, 200, 300. I don't know. Can you see that? I don't know how close
You got to
get
get closer. Yeah, a little bit.
So it'd be 100, 200, 300. And each one of them little marks up there is 20 thousandths. Okay, with the biggest mark in the middle being 50. So in the case, it'd be 350. It's 340. So it's 10 thousandths under it. The thickness of that scale is roughly 20 thousandths. Okay, so you would take this and you would measure cup to cup. Okay, and this is more accurate because you just can't get that on a tape measure. So this is more accurate. You can get a tape measure with this scale on. It's just hard to find, but this is easy to get in the car and get up there and measure. Okay, so we will be selling these as soon as we get pricing on them. So that'll be new in the catalog. Also, why I got you guys on here, would anybody be interested in a right front travel indicator that travels spring compression on the right front, left front? Could do it on both sides. We'll measure spring load. Think about this. We'll measure spring compression, maximum spring compression on the car while you're racing, right up through the middle of the spring. Okay, it'll probably be easier in a stock lower control arm because of the mounting holes that are in lower control arm for a stock mount shock. We're going to mount in that hole. Travel indicator, fairly good sized rod. Think about it a little bit. Think about what I'm saying. We'll measure travel up through the spring cup. Okay, so rod on the bottom, spring cup on the top. Think about it. So, so when you get out, you go, okay, this is how much travel I have. I know my set height. So you're looking at load numbers, doing the math versus doing a load stick. So it's kind of the alternative to a load stick, maybe. There's some other benefits in it, but you're going to have to think about them to understand them. So I can't explain them right now, but think about it. So if you guys are interested, comment on it. Any other questions, son?
Corey Baker said, "What do you think about lower initial load with higher spring rate for slick track conditions?"
Yeah, I don't think that's the route you want to go because you're going to lower the load. Excuse me. See if you can find that little piece of paper or paper towel for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to do a real rough drawing here. Sweet. Okay. So there's our spring. And we got that spring compressed. Stiffer spring, less load. This was where we were at. This is the 1,660. Now we're stiffer spring, less load. So that's where we're at. And just to make it simple, we'll just say 1 inch. Okay? It's not really how a spring compresses, but you got to think about this in your head. You got to visualize it. We had this much compression on the spring. Okay? So we're looking at a spring stiffness or a frequency that's in this area, that is created in that area. Okay? And then we're going to take our activity and we're going to reduce it to this area. Okay? We went stiffer spring, less load. So our activity now is having to be produced in that little area up there. Okay? And it's too stiff. The shorter this gets, the stiffer it gets. Okay? So A stiffer spring, less load for the car, not for load numbers, for the car, I don't think is a good idea. I think that's maybe going backwards. And where we're going to get into trouble is trying to go softer springs and maintain that 2-inch compression number, trying to maintain that 2-inch compression number to keep the car rear steered at the same amount all the time. That's going to be tough because you got nothing you can add. You can't add rubbers, you can't add bump stops, you can't do these things. In classes you can, you know, having a softer spring and a load with the bump. Okay, so, you know, moving the bump up on a street stock on the right rear is not a bad idea. Okay, but you don't know because you don't know where you're at. So, you know, I'm gonna pick on the street stock guys a little bit because you can run bump stops, you can run travel indicators. You don't do these things because a travel indicator costs $60 or $82 or whatever it is. But the information you're going to get from it is going to pay for itself multiple times over. Okay, because you can't guess. We've been guessing for 30 years, and guess what? We ain't got it right yet. So we ain't going to guess and get it right. Buy a travel indicator, put it on the car, see how much the stupid thing's traveling. Okay, IMCA won't allow you to use a GoPro. Okay, so you IMCA guys can't do it. USMTS, I don't think actually allows you to have a GoPro under the car because we got dinged for that one night. What they currently do, I don't know. You know, you guys would have to buy a GoPro 5 or greater with the data in it, with the mile per hour, the G-force, the GPS location deals. A great tool. You can mount it here. You can watch how much steering input you have in the car. You can, and you can tell if you're tight or loose and what you're doing with the car. So not only can you fix the driver, work on the driver, you can work on some data. It actually gives you some data that will make you better if you understand what you're looking at. If you're a team member, we'll cover that. We'll go over it. We'll do it. Once the website's up, there'll be a video on GoPro data and what to look for and what to expect. Okay, so that'll be a video coming soon. So this deal, was there any other questions?
Yeah, Teresa and Dan Wheeler asked, right rear spring angle more or less angle to center of car?
This, Dan, this is a tough question. It's a tough question. I feel like it's got a lot of answers, okay? So, and I don't feel like I can answer it well. So let's say I'm not, like back in the day we had a late model and we had like, or UPS, we had like 25 degrees angle. And it's like, it just was like too much, okay? So I think, you know, you get into roll rate, you get into how easy it is to compress the spring, you know, and the spring's easier to compress. So when you lay the spring down, the angle changes the rate, okay? But I don't think we need to worry about that. I think what we need to worry about is spring location from the tire, okay? So like on a standard modified, 8 inches from the rotor to the center of the spring, it's about as far inboard as you can get. Okay, when you start getting in further, you know, a car that we looked at last weekend was sitting around 9 3/4, 10 inches. Okay, this, and that was probably from the inside of the rotor. So this is going to change the rate, okay, which kills the tire load, okay, which means the spring needs to be stiffer. I like to see a spring as the car rolls over stand back up, but stay on this side of dead top center, okay? So I'll kind of show you that. That's going to be dead top center. And that's dead top center, and that's our roll, and this is our spring, okay? And if we can get our spring to get to stand up and get in this range, I think we're fine. You know, from here to here, there'll be very, very minimal rate change, okay? But but when the load crosses dead top center or center line of the slider, then you're going to have some issues right in this area with load. So spring angle changes the spring rate, and I don't know that we just don't need to be excessive with it, okay? When the car goes into rear steer, what the right rear spring does as far as standing up and down and its movement is pretty important. We can't allow the, you know, that spring to move too much, you know. So spring angle does change the car, and it does change the rate in the car, but I don't think it's killing everything. I just think you want to keep it on this side of dead top center, and I think if the spring stands up better, I think it's better. If the spring location to the wheel is better, then I think that's better too. So we need to work on that a little bit. I lost my helper again, so I don't know. I'm just winging it. So we'll see if I can't get her back in here and see if we got any more questions. Yeah, not like that ain't gonna happen. So guys that are on the program, you know, that are team members, we talk about this. So you people that don't know, we have a team you can join, okay? Like the conversation I had today with the guy, you don't have to join it, okay? If you buy our product and you run our shocks and you run our springs and you got questions, then we'll give you help, okay? If you want to get in on some of the benefits of being a part of a team, then you need to join the membership, okay? And go ahead and look for some more questions. You need to join the membership. The membership is $250 a year, okay? We're going to have it online, setup sheets, data, information, email blast, push notification type setup, so you guys get the help first. You guys get the information first, because it's going to be easy to share it with you. Okay, don't have to call 500 people. Okay, I can send an email, boom, it's done. Okay, race results. I want to stay in touch with you guys. I can't call everybody I need to call every week. Nothing else gets done. So as a team, you can load your, you know, heat race wins, features. You can load your results back to your own personalized page, setup sheet information, your timeline, and we can review it, okay? Whether we review everybody at the same time or one at a time, or, you know, maybe, you know, you next week or whatever. You know, if you're doing well, then you don't probably need help. It's guys that are struggling, we want to get them help. So get on our website, bsbgofast.com. It's right on the front homepage. While you're there, take a moment to, enjoy bass, whatever it's called. I don't know. Our national champions for this year. You know, we got 3 national champions. If we miss somebody, if there's a regional, especially in the mod lights, if there's a, you know, different series champion, or some of the modifieds on the East Coast, you know, MARA, some of the different series, Rush, or the guys down south that are running Great USA. If I miss somebody, please let me know. I want to put you on our winners list. We collect national champions. Okay? When I said earlier it's about the speed, it's because I want to win races. Okay? It's not about the gizmo. It's about winning races. It's about winning your first race. It's about winning your 100th race. Okay? We race to win. Okay? We don't race to race. We race to win. Okay? I don't fish because I can't catch fish. Okay? I don't enjoy throwing a lure in the water and watching it sink. Okay? I go to the racetrack to win. And I feel like you guys do too, you know. And if you do, the membership is part of that. It's us helping you try to win races. Okay, it's closing the gap. So look it up. It's on the homepage. Admire the 3 national champions. A lot of guys in the north are not going to know who Ricky Item is, and that's a doggone shame, because not only is he one of the coolest guys you'll ever meet at a racetrack, dude's won over 800 races, and that, I mean, is unheard of. I mean, that's just, and it's sprint car, late model, street stock, modifieds, B mods. I mean, if it's got wheels on it, Ricky's raced it. Okay, just phenomenal career. Phenomenal guy, you know, just a great group down there. There's a lot of them, but he's one of them, you know. Corey won, and Zach Forrester won in the Mod Lights. So he was your Stars national champion. He has a great story to tell for this year's season. And Corey's 2-time back-to-back champion. 26, 27, 28 race wins. So, and it's not, you know, when you win 28 races, you're not just picking cotton. You're baking bacon, you know. So he had a great year. Them guys, right on the homepage, it'll say Team BSB. Go check that out. Tells you a little bit about it. I think I probably told you more. Is there any other questions on it?
Paul Harper said, speaking of rebound, would more right rear rebound on the shock help slow down the spring action on the corner exit and help drive?
Yes. So, yes, we need that rebound on the right rear. So, as soon as you touch throttle, 4-bar, 3-length, the car is going to want to climb the bars. That's the nature of the car. As the car climbs the bar, the body rolls over it. So what we see and what happens, kind of 2 different things, okay? So once a guy understands that the bar is climbing, then he also understands the right rear wheel load is decreasing as the car increases its height, okay? A little bit of the body roll, a little bit of the rear steer, but the spring is separating, not compressing on exit, okay? And as soon as the tire loses its load, the car will tail out on you, okay? And you'll spin that tire, you'll slide it, whatever, the car will tail out. So yes, it's slower. Rebound, this is, you know, rebound slows that process down. It lets you get through the corner and on the straightaway before you lose the right rear tire. So it's important, yes.
Mike Rittenberg asked, has there ever been thought of spring angle giving false load numbers depending on how much spring angle is on the spring?
Could you read that again?
Has there ever been thought of spring angle giving false load numbers depending on how much spring angle on the springs?
Oh, probably the biggest part with that spring angle deal is going to be this. If it rolls, the more it rolls, the more chance or opportunity it has to screw up, okay? So we'll use a scenario where we have a slider and the spring's on a slider. And it's on the right rear bird cage, okay? And we're going to roll this thing up. Well, we gotta get through the roll, get through the compression, get through the rod ends to get this, and we got to do it every lap, 2 times a lap, okay? So its ability to do this as the rod ends and the slider get older, decrease. The other amazingly large factor in this is the racetrack. So as the racetrack slows down, then all that movement slows down with it, okay? And then our car, where our car is at, so like when we're 3/8 of an inch, 1/2 inch off our roll steer, then the traction, the amount of traction the car is making is also off, okay? And then a guy's like, car ain't as good. And it leads to a lengthy process of things that make us bad. So spring angle, I don't think is, yes, false reading, probably not sitting on the scales, you know, but the car may be a little funky, you know. So I don't like a lot of spring angle over there, you know, and I think as it stands up, it gets better.
Chad Smith asked if that's a progressive spring.
No. Yes, no. This is an IMCA legal spring, okay? This is USRA legal spring. This is Neesmith legal spring. This has This does not look like a progressive spring, correct? No, it does not look like a progressive spring. So this spring has rate change in it, okay? Unlike a progressive spring where you remove coils to increase rate, this is not doing that. Okay, so a progressive spring a lot of times will have a couple of coils up here, like there'd be another coil right in here. Okay, and as them coils get closer together, the rate changes in that area. Okay, and then the spring wire becomes shorter, and that makes the spring stiffer. Okay, if you look at this spring, it looks as normal as any 13-inch spring you probably see. So it has some rate change in it. Okay, and I'm sure a lot of springs have rate change in them. It's just that we're controlling the rate change on this, okay, versus not knowing the rate change of a spring. So here's the problem. When you buy this spring from us, you're going to get a dyno sheet with it, okay? So if you put this on and you rate it 1 inch, 1 inch, you know, 1 inch clear the scales 1 inch, or 1 inch clear the scales 2 inch, doesn't matter how you rate it, or 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, you're going to get, and I have to think a little bit about it, you're going to get roughly about 240 spring rate or something, okay? Because you're looking at the spring over an inch, not the spring over motion. So the spring gains rate as it moves, not the 100 pounds, 100 pounds, 100 pounds. It's 100 pounds, 110, 120, okay? Typically in a linear spring, this is not what you want. You don't want the spring to come, as you compress it, to gain rate. Okay, in this spring, since we're controlling the height in which it's gaining rate, where it's gaining rate at, and where the rate gain stops, this is perfect for a right rear. Okay, because that's how it was built. Okay, so, you know, if somebody was to come out and say this spring was illegal, then virtually every spring that we race on would be illegal. So, and then we're opening a can of worms that, you know, because like I said, you can't rate this in a normal way. You have to rate this pretty hard, okay? And we started rating springs like this CNC here in house. So we're not on aero hydraulic. We're not on electric spring smasher. We've been rating these CNC. So we can rate them at speeds. We can rate them at different heights. We can rate them and this spring gets rated in 200,000 increments. So when you get your little dyno sheet, it'll be rated in 200 increments, and you can see the average over an inch, 200 at a time, and you can see the rate change at 200 at a time. Until you do this, you don't understand that what a couple pounds in spring at, you know, 200,000 travel makes. So
Jeremy Down asked what the cost of the springs are. They are $100.
Is this one $100?
Yes.
Okay, our standard spring is $75.
Yes.
Okay, a specialty spring is $100. Okay, which really we only have two: this one and the 16-inch 125. Okay, now I ain't too sure the hitch in the system doesn't allow us sometimes to sell them cheaper. Is that correct? I mean, doesn't it seem like the 125 sometimes are $75?
They are, yeah.
Yeah. So technically, this is a $100 spring. Okay?
Yeah, we sell that for $100.
Okay. The left rear spring we preload is technically a $100 spring. Most of the time, it sells for $75.
I think that's right. Yeah. I think that's what's
from
in
time
there.
to time, we do sales on this. This is what I was talking about earlier. If you guys, you know, it's way springs are made, okay? So all spring manufacturers talk about how they coil springs, okay? And the high-tech coiling, okay? But there's CNC coilers that are, you know, like we got CNC machines, but we still have to load the parts. And then there's parts that you don't, there's machines that are CNC you don't have to load, that you can run not lights out production on, okay? And they load their own parts, you know, the robotic, okay? So the CNC spring machines are kind of that way. They have CNC coilers and they have CNC machines, okay? We're on a CNC machine, and need to be on a CNC coiler. So if we could sell this spring for 75 bucks and sell 200 of them, we jump on that because that gets us on the coiler, okay, the CNC coiler, and then that lets us to control everything right to the button, okay. So this spring still has a little bit of variance in it because of the way it's made, okay. It's a great spring, okay, and we can make it greater, we can make it better, and that's what I want to do. But we got to get the volume up, guys. I need your support on this deal. So either somebody needs to, bring a bucket of money, or buy a bunch of springs, or we need to sell a bunch of springs. Okay, this is not hype. I'm not trying to hype you. If you don't know me, call, because I don't hype you. Every shock we've ever sold's gone out the door with the guarantee if it don't work, we'll fix it. If it's not the valving that make your car go around the racetrack, we'll make it right. If we're so wrong that you're so horrible, we'll make it right. We've done that for 10 years. That's been our deal. Okay? If I sell you this spring and you think I'm full of it, I'll buy it back. Okay? It's just, we don't have to do them things because we don't sell a lie. We sell what is the truth, what we believe is the truth, okay? And I believe this is a really, really good spring.
Jim Erickson said, how about using a tight or close coil spring?
Okay, so I'm not really going to answer that question, but I'm going to answer it like this. This is a less active coil spring, okay? So often the story is told how this guy, a spring guy, goes and helps this guy. They change the spring in the car, same rate, but the spring has more coils and the car gets better, okay? Well, it goes back to that drawing that I had with, this is how much of the spring we're going to use, okay? This is the compressed height of the spring right here, okay? And this is our current spring, okay? And this is a spring with more coils in it, okay? So this spring has virtually twice as much wire, okay? So a less active coil spring, this spring, less active coil, has a shorter rod. This spring has a stronger frequency, okay? It's a stiffer frequency. If this had twice as many coil, it would have a softer frequency. Okay, so I can't really show you that, but if this had more coils, it would vibrate more. Okay, which means increase the movement in the car. Okay, but the whole thing can be controlled by valving. So a less active coil spring needs more valving than a coiled up spring. So is there an advantage? No, but it's a way to sell something to somebody when they're on a spring like this. You can come in. Does it make the car feel better? Probably does. It probably does make the car feel better, but it's because that car is not tuned between its spring and its shock. Okay, so your big time NASCAR guys, your big time asphalt guys, they all say, hey, you need to tune the frequency of the spring to the frequency of the shock. Okay, and that's what they're talking about. And if you're not, basically you ain't got enough rebound in it to control the spring. So you need to work on overall rebound, valve number, low speed rebound, spring frequency. Don't even, if you search spring frequency, you're going to get what's a lot of math. Okay, and there's formulas out there to figure it, and it's something that you need to lean on your shot guy to make right. Okay, and I feel like we're very good at it. So like if you own a set of our shocks and you like them, you're missing out, because having our shocks with our springs makes the car even better. Okay, and it's because we're valved to that frequency, so.
Brian Weir says, is a heavy spring on the right rear just hype, or is it another turning tool? Wait a minute here, though. He has another question. He said, I mean the overall weight of the spring.
Oh, not the rate. He's saying not the rate. Yeah, so like when the spring's heavier, it's heavier because it's got more coils. Okay, so this is I'm not saying it's an easy way to make a car feel better. Okay, so you have cars that make traction. Okay, and you have cars that don't make traction. Now, let me back that up. You have a car that makes traction that you can feel, and you have a car that makes traction that you can't feel. That feels being masked through the spring, the shock, the tire. Okay? But in theory, that car is just as good as the other car, but you won't drive it because you can't feel it. Okay? But you get mad because somebody bumpered you up, and all of a sudden your car gets really good. Okay, because you forgot about the feel deal, and you're driving on adrenaline, you're mad, you want to catch that guy, whatever, you got a point to prove. So you're worrying about how bad the car feels, and you just drive the thing. Okay, the car performs well, which reminds me of a story of Chad Dolan, which reminds me that Chad's been sick, you know, and I'm just going to throw this in there real quick. You know, we need to pray for Chad. I think Chad's getting better. Love you, buddy. Get well. Been thinking about you, been praying for you, but you know, kind of forgot what I was saying now, but the weight of the spring, having more coils in it, will actually allow the car to think it's better. Okay, so does it increase the grip or does it increase the feel? This is a question. A lot of times when we feel the car better, we think the grip's increased. You know, which just makes sense. But a lot of times you'll see a car that's not that good get really good and nothing changed. And it all happens right out there on the racetrack and nothing changed. So how does a car just get good like that? Well, it started out good like that and you couldn't feel it. So more coils, you don't need to sell all your springs to get more coils. Okay? If you got more coils, that's fine. What you need to do is you need to have your spring shocks tuned together. And it's really tough, like you to send me the shocks and say, hey, I got brand X springs, and it doesn't matter what spring, and they're 3 years old. Okay, well, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. They're never gonna get tuned to each other. You're gonna have to say, I'm tight here, I'm loose there, I need more grip here, I need more grip there, and we just keep increasing the grip level until we get it right. You know, so you know, when you buy. And we're going to do some like street stock spring packages, stock car spring packages, along with shocks. So you'll be springs and shocks, and spring shocks and indicators or bump stops, or you know, the stuff to go with it. So no, a less active coil spring is as good as the other one. You just need to understand it. We need to maybe be in the spring a little more, in the fronts maybe, the right rear. We need a stiffer spring, because we need it to support. If we're driving the car in, turning the car left, we need a stiffer spring. If we're driving the car in and putting it on the right rear, open motor, we probably need a softer spring. If you're banging a cushion, whole different thing. I'm talking about racetracks without cushions that the normal people drive on, that we have in the Midwest. You know, we don't have cushions. You know, most of the country don't have cushions. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So, any other questions?
When are your scales going to be ready?
Well, we had a little glitch in the system. So they're scale pad risers. Okay, so we had a little glitch in the system because, you know, I want them to be cost effective. And man, they weren't. There was no money in them for me. There was no money in them for the dealers, and they were just expensive. Okay. So the guy making the money was the material guy, the laser guy. So it's just like, that ain't gonna happen. So we re-kicked it around, kind of redesigned. So I'm gonna say January 1st. The next 30, 40 days, yes, we'll be talking about them. We'll be showing that deal for you. So we had to kind of reconfigure it. Got a little help from some of our buddies. I appreciate the help, Tim. So we've been doing that deal. Oh,
I think he meant this.
Oh,
I think he meant the.
I think you're right. I think you
Yeah.
did mean this. Okay, so we've talked about scale pads before. This is pretty much ready to sell. I just need to get my lovely assistant to come up with a retail price. So
Yeah.
probably not going to get it done today, but
Next week.
yeah, Jody. See, Mod Light guy already on board with what we're doing. Okay, so Jody, there's your scale. You know, sometimes I might be a little hard on the Mod Light guys, but if they don't jump the gun, I think right now they might have some of the best programs in racing. You know, the dirt late model guys are getting her done, you know, but the Mod Light guys, they do a lot with what they got, a lot, and they're thinking. So
Trevor Baker said, will the travel indicator work with any spring cup?
No, it won't. And the beauty to the travel indicator is you can make it work. You can probably make it work. The beauty to the travel indicator is going to be what the travel indicator can do. Okay? Not just the information it gives. Okay? Got to think about that one. So, you know, the travel indicator, if this was a front spring, it running right up through here, and the rubber is pushing off the center of the cup. Okay, that's why it's not going to work. So the travel indicator needs to be able to travel into the cup. Okay, so there's going to be a tube, a finger, a device in the cup that allows the rubber to be, you know, pushed against it to show the travel. So you could touch the cup, you know, you could touch when you put the spring in, you could touch it, set your indicator, set your ride height. Now you know how much the spring is compressed at ride height. So now you know what your rate at ride height is, a lot like a load stick. And you can go out and race it, see how much you're getting on the right front at the spring. Okay, the indicator that's on the shock often works the same way, but it doesn't allow for any other information or any other thing to be done. Okay, so when we move the indicator to the spring, it does change the amount of travel versus the shock that the indicator gets, but it starts to allow you to broaden your horizons to say the opportunities in which the information it can give you.
Craig Hansen said, how often should springs be replaced?
Every year, you know. It depends on the spring you run, okay? So some springs, and I got customers that want to be loyal to a brand, and that is great, okay? And some of those springs need to be changed out more often. You know, they just need to be changed out more often, you know? So, you know, it kind of depends on the brand. And if you got brand X and you put new springs in and you go, wow, my car come to life, that absolutely will happen. Okay, and if you notice in 6 weeks the car has not come to life anymore, then it's time to change springs. This is called spring life. Okay, it's different in spring rate and free height. Free height and spring rate have nothing to do with the quality of the spring. The quality of the spring is in the design, the material, the heat treat, the shocking. It's where the life is. Okay, life is what creates feel and drive in a car. Okay, our springs, I say once a year, 30 to 45, 50 nights once a year. You know, if you're B-mod right rear, probably ought to be a couple times a year. If you're on brand X, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And the only way you're going to make that work, if you're on brand X, is you buy the springs, you got them sitting on the shelf, you put a date on that, put 4 springs over there and put a date on it. When that date shows up, you put them 4 springs in the car. Because when you go, well, I changed this one, I did that one, and the next thing you know, they're in there all year long. You know, so once a year, you know, good spring, once a year.
Frank asked, what is your take on a 20-inch left rear spring or 16-inch left spring?
Okay, versus each other. Who's Frank? Who?
Har, H-A-A-R.
Okay. Okay. So the only reason I asked that was because I was trying to get a feel for maybe where he's at. But I think the 20-inch spring is you know, an IMCA, you got to run a 16-inch spring. Okay, I think the 20-inch spring is a better spring. Okay, has more energy in it, has more of that compressed rate that we've been talking about. Okay, and it allows the car to make traction in that rate when it's fully left rear at full load. Okay, so the spring frequency up there is softer again. The compressed spring rate is softer up there. Okay, so in a 20-inch spring, I think it's better. Okay, now a 20-inch spring is a horrid pain to put on the car. It's just, they suck. So IMCA said 16-inch spring. We're currently building a 16-inch spring. We had all the money in the world, we'd building an 18-inch spring too. Okay, I feel like the 125 rate covers the bases, and sometimes an 80-pound rate might be better. Okay, but there's a lot of times an 80-pound rate is going to give it's not enough rate for the track condition. So I feel like the 125 covers the base more often than the softer springs. Okay, I do think the 20-inch spring maybe puts a little more drive in the car and a little more feel. On a shorter spring, we have stuff to take care of that in the SRT piston and stuff. Okay, it'll take care of that. So if you don't have an SRT piston in your car, you need to understand what they are and why you need them, because you need them. And left rears and what we're doing with the right fronts and stuff, you need them. Them pistons make grip.
Tyler White asks, what is the optimal spring location to wheel, in your opinion?
Probably between 6 to 8 inches from the wheel side of the rotor. So on the rear of a car, 6 to 8 inches on the wheel side of the rotor.
And then, okay.
You get them in too much further, and the rate starts going away, and you got to be higher in spring rate than a lot of your competitors. And when you're asking what rate are you on, you know, if you need to be on a 250, 275 to equal a 225 because it's location. Sometimes when you get the spring too far out, the other thing that happens is they become too stiff, you know. So now you start seeing where you need to be a little softer, okay? But a lot of cars, 60-inch centers, are on about a 40, 42-inch split on the 4-link brackets. So the bird cages, you know, they sit out at, the spring sits out in that 6 to 8 inch range.
Trevor Baker said, on a Northern Sport Mod right rear spring, is the dynamic 2-inch number the same as compressing the spring 2 inches in the Smasher?
Yeah. So like if you're at given ride height, you know, so we'll say, you know, if this is 11, 500. Obviously, I can't write it down. 500. Then, you know, that would be your ride height, spring height. So then your 2-inch compression number would be right there. So, yes, from your ride height to down 2 inches would be your load number. So you could check it in a rater. Absolutely. This is where this starts becoming more handy. This is just a cheap version of many tools you could buy to get an accurate number here. Okay, so again, if you watch that video, you start seeing, you know, what 20 thousandths does to a spring rate. You know, so it's why you can be very accurate with this. Okay, you can't be to the thousandths, but you can easily be to the 10 thousandths. Good machinists can read a 10 thousandths measurement on the scale. Okay, maybe a Starrett scale better than this one because they're just more, you know, they have more clarity.
Trevor also, he said, does the top of the spring moving right of center affect the spring load number dramatically? Dynamically.
So I think, I'm guessing he means like standing up. So yes, there's going to be a little bit of,
Does the top of the spring moving right of center affect the spring load number dynamically?
Okay, so I'm assuming that he means as the top of the spring moves like this, as the car rear steers and stuff. Yes, technically, yes, it's going to change that number. but I think it becomes such a thing, I wouldn't worry about it. You know, I was worried about maybe the load number, but there's so much going on in the car, and the repetitiveness of that going on in the car is pretty inaccurate. We really have no clue to where it's at, so I think we're bench race talking when we talk about some of this stuff. Reality says control what we can control, fix what we can fix, and we can't get too hung up on the stuff we can't fix. Okay, maybe understanding some of that stuff gives you a better understanding of your car and what's going on, but you know, spring rate roll and doing the math is pretty tough. So, you know, work on your car at ride height, work on your car at dynamic, and understand that the transition between the two. The problem that I see with dynamic, and everybody says dynamic, you know, that's why we race, okay? Well, dynamic is some artificial number that we think we race at, and we pull the car down and we make it, okay? So it's really no different than a scale number. It's just a down number. It's a position that we think we race in, okay? The only way we know we race there is if we have data on the car, okay? So I'm going to say 10% of us have put data on the car, and out of the 10% that have, probably only 1% of them do it frequently, okay? It's a pain in the butt. It's not legal. The sport right now not allowing it. Have to do it in a test session. Some racetracks, some IMCA racetracks will not allow you on the track surface with data. Okay, you want to be an IMCA and race data, you not race. If you want to be an IMCA and test. So in the state of Kansas, I've asked to test data on an IMCA track, and the answer is no, not at all. And they're not going to do it because they don't want to get crossway with IMCA. Now, I do believe you can go to Iowa and test with that on the car.
Robert Power said, is the 1 inch up number important on the right rear?
Well, I guess I don't understand the question, so I'm going to say the 1 inch up number from ride height up or from ride height down. You know, so like you got you know, your spring compressed here at ride height, and then you got 1 inch and you got 2 inch. Well, the 2 inch is about where the car is going to stop. That's why that number is important. Okay, so this is like setting a chain. So our car always gets to the same spot in the down number. Okay, that's important. That's why that's going on. If I was in a modified or a hobby stock, not hobby stock, but you know, stock car, street stock, A mod, I think I would worry about my compressed height at ride height, how that weight falls on them 4 tires. Okay, and then if you worry about that, control your spring loads with Rebound. Take a good, well-prepared car to the racetrack and drive it with some sensibility. I think you're going to win races. Okay, I think you got the hands up on a lot of the competitors. Okay, so some of this other stuff is, you know, way on the technical side. Since we can't tune it with rubbers, we can't tune it with bump stops. Understanding it helps, but there ain't no sense in getting all hung up on it.
Sean Langover said, will more right rear spring angle make the rate less progressive through travel on the spring that we have here?
More right rear angle make the spring less progressive through travel, as long as the angle stays the same. So as the car steers up, if the spring stands up, then the spring is going to increase in rate. So if the angle was to stay 15 degrees throughout the motion, then yes, there's a calculator on our website to calculate spring angle. Okay, I believe it's in the blog. You got to go to the blog to get to it. Okay, so on our websites, on both of our websites, there are blogs. Okay, the current blog is on BSB Go Fast. There's articles on there: how to tune a car, how to tune a car with Rebound, how to tune a car with spring rate, and amazingly, no one wants to read them. Okay, so get on there and read them things. Spring angle is going to affect the overall spring rate regardless of the spring. Okay, here again, I don't know that I would be overly concerned about it because unless you're going to change it, unless you can make it move or do something with it, it is what it is. Okay, if you ain't got enough spring in the car, if your car's laying on the right rear, put spring in it. If you're inboard 10 inches and your car needs a 300, put a 300 in it. Give the car what the car needs. That's what we do as racers. Okay, don't worry about what your neighbor's doing or your buddy. Give your car what the car needs. If your car's out there on the racetrack and it's down on the right rear, you need more right rear spring.
Robert asks, what about a modified spring package?
Yes, I mean, you know, unfortunately, we don't have enough people to have all these Black Friday sales and all this stuff going on. And, you know, me and Mama, we like a day off once in a while too. And with that being said, we're closed on Friday. And maybe she'll post something that maybe we'll get it. But yes, we're going to do from here to the end of the year. We're going to offer some shock spring packages, combinations, really good on the springs. And we'll just do some general sales on springs. So yes, starting probably next week, we've got a little inventory we want to clear on springs, make some room for stuff coming in. So we're going to offer a aggressive spring package for a street stock, a 604 style street stock. Okay, so it's a soft spring package. An IMCA modified. We're developing a couple of springs for them cars. We probably won't see that till February. Kobik has jacked up our spring guy. So that process is a little slow. But yeah, so like you know, if you want to be conventional sprung, you know, 500, 550, 600 spring, you want to tune with them. There's no reason why, you know, these springs, you don't have to be preloaded. We can set load numbers. We can control them with Rebound, and the cars go out and race really, really well. So we're going to
You're about to run out of battery.
We're going to do some spring stuff. So I guess we'll just answer questions till it goes dead.
Okay, it's...
Did it hit 5%?
Yeah, and it went pretty light, pretty dark on your end.
Yeah, so we're probably within minutes of it dying. I don't have a charger here.
That's about...
I would love to answer more questions. You know, we might do something Friday, you know, because, you know, we got a bit of work to do Friday, some stuff to draw, some engineering to do, some cleaning to do. Friday would be a good time. If you guys want to do stuff, message me. You know, we can, I wouldn't mind doing this for a while longer. I know it's getting long. I know it gets boring. And I apologize that you know, nothing I hate more than watching some old guy stand there and talk for hours, you know. And I mean, I appreciate you guys getting on and doing these videos because, you know, it's, for me, it's hard to do. And I'm probably not the best spokesperson, so I can't keep your attention span, you know, so I appreciate you guys. So any quick questions? So bsbgofast.com, Facebook J Neal, BSB Manufacturing, bsbshocks.com, 620-326-3152 is our number. If you need help, call. Get on the website, look at the Team Go Fast deal. This video will be on YouTube, J Neal. There's a link on our page on the BSB Go Fast TV page, BSB GF, I think it says GF TV. Click on that, go to the link, click on it, YouTube. I see you smiling, but there's that stuff. Anything we can do to help. Springs, you guys, you owe it to yourself to give it a shot. Very good, very good, very good spring. Let me know what you want. So God bless you. Have a great Thanksgiving. Be thankful for what you have. Be thankful for good health. Be thankful that God loves you. You guys be good. See you later.